Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One, coming to you on Monday, July the 5th, the year's 2021. Let's talk trading. Bread and butter trades. Just so you know, these videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine. Last week, I think Walmall had mentioned about his bread and butter trade. And I guess a couple of you wanted to know a little bit more about that. So I thought we would explore bread and butter trades. Now, first, let's define our terms. What's a bread and butter trade? It's a trade that you know has a very high statistical probability of paying off in your favor. In other words, if you take that trade, it might have a 60% or better expectancy for you to win, maybe even higher. So, first thing is how do you find a bread and butter trade? Now, those of you who have been following me for years or decades know I do everything based on statistics. And usually that means I run my frequency distribution indicator. And I've got a version here for 2021. And usually I might look at a daily stat or an hourly stat to find a trade. Now, what I have right here, we look at high minus low. Well, that's the range. Okay. You can see here, I even put it in the comment. So the reason I have it in the range, or I look at the ranges, I want to make sure what instrument I'm trading moves. So for example here, you can see that the pound dollar over the last 100 days had a range of 50 or more 97% of the time, 60 or more 92% of the time. But you can see here over 100, we're only at 39%. But you've got a 60% chance of the range being greater than 80, 51% historically chance that it's going to be above 90. So what does that mean? Well, what that means to me is when I wake up, sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning, and turn on my computer and start to look for trades, if I see the range is somewhere around 50 or 60 for that day, I know chances are if it hits the high or low, it's going to probably expand. That's just what happens. And so I know that there's a good probability that there's going to be a breakout. And there's even one other thing that's even also to note. Now, hold on for a second. Okay, back to you. Now, one of the things that the range also lets me know is, as I mentioned earlier, if it's near the high or low, it's probably going to expand. Well, sometimes to get to the high or low, it may have to cross the open and or the previous candle's midpoint. And so if it's moving that way and range hasn't been reached, I look to take trades at those levels too. Those can be bread and butter trades. So for example, when I talk about the high minus the open, or the high minus, or the open minus the low, that's for those buy zone type trades. So here, high minus open, you can see it's usually greater than 40, 59% of the time. Over the past 100 days, it was. So I use those in combination for bread and butter trades, saying, this is what price has a tendency to do. Now, does every trade work every time? Of course not. But if I see price, the range being low from a statistical standpoint, and then I see it crossing that daily open, then it's like, well, it needs the range. So if it crosses the open and it needs the range, then it's probably going to go for a while. And so that's how I make a bread and butter trade. Now, we've also talked about, the breakout kind of trades, like breaking out of the wick zone. So we might have the high minus the previous high. And so you can see here, the numbers drop down. Why? Because sometimes it doesn't break out of the previous high. But you can see here, we did break out of the previous high. So about half the time when it breaks out, of course, it's above 0 pips. When it breaks out, it's above 10 pips about 43% of the time. And you might think, well, 43%, that's less than 50-50. Well, you have to think about it. You can see here out of 100, it only broke out 53. So if it only broke out 53, that's about half, right? So half the time it breaks out. So then when it does break out, you can see it's going to go 10 or more pips. Basically, you have to double it, almost say 80% of the time. Because when it breaks out, it'll go 10 or more, 43. So if you put 43 over 53, you can call it, say you put 40 over 50. What's that? That's 80%. So you have to understand how to look at these things from a statistical standpoint. So it's just like the buy zone says, if it moves 10 pips, then it has what chance does it move 20 pips? Well, it's the same thing here. If it breaks out, it's got a pretty good chance it's going to go 10 pips or more. I hope you follow that along, because it's not something that most people understand. So, another one of the trades that I like to do is, if you look at the open and you look at the pivot point, right here's the pivot. Now, I'm going to say use absolute value true, because we want to look at the distance between the open and the pivot. And since I'm using the minus here, because we can do greater than, less than, equal, but we've got minus, because most of the times we're not adding. We want to know the difference between two levels, or the distance between two levels. So when we turn absolute value to true on daily, you can see usually the difference is greater than 0, and 10 pips about 70% of the time, or actually 71% of the time, it's greater than or equal to 10, 71% of the time. So this 71, because I'm using cumulative values here, I'm using absolute value, you can see we've got a chance of hitting that pivot. Now, it doesn't always hit the pivot, but we see what the distance is here. So you can see that this is a very nice trade to take, saying there's opportunity to make money when price is moving towards the pivot. And back on the other screen here, where do we do the, on the pivot, where we actually look at the missed pivots, you can see very few missed pivots. And in fact, we even missed one today. So chances are it probably won't hit today, which that happens just like it didn't hit, what, 4 days ago? But sooner or later, one of these two pivots, I would imagine, is going to get taken out. So that's another one of those bread and butter type trades. And so, the other one, I talk about it a lot, which would be a rat zone trade. For example, let's do the close minus the low of the current day, and it doesn't matter if we have absolute value true or not, but I'll just turn it false because it should never be less than 0. It's technically impossible. So you can see here difference is usually greater than 0, 100%, because of definition, right? Greater than 10, 88% of the time over the last 100 days. So if you traded off of the bottom, or I'm sorry, if you traded off the daily low and it starts to do that retrace, and I set the rat zone at 20, so you can see here, close minus low, greater than 20, 72% of the time. So you can see here on today, it's definitely greater. But of course, people say, well, how do you know when it's the daily low? It could always get lower. That's true. It's trading. So you take your chances. So on the other hand, if we look at the high minus the close from today, so we say high minus close. Once again, interesting, greater than equals 0 is only 99%. I'm wondering why that happened. That's interesting. I'll have to take a look at the code to see. There might be some weird anomaly in the data, but that should be 100. Oh, actually, no, we only use 99 bars. I wonder why that happened. That's interesting. So here, right now, you can see we've got a high of 61 and a close of 52, so it's about 9 pips off of the high. But we don't know. That's live. So, of course, this could come down more, or we could push up, make a new high, and get a reversal. Point being is, greater than 20, once again, about 70% of the time. So that's why the rat trade are one of my bread and butter trades. Because what I'll do is we go back to the first, we look at the range. Has it ranged what it usually ranges? Has it hit one of those extremes? Because if it has, there's a good chance it'll reverse. And so I can pick up some pips on that reversal. So, fellow traders, fastest 15 minutes in trading's up. So I hope that gave you some insight on how to find bread and butter trades. And we'll go into some more things about the actual trading later. And Walmart hopefully will join us later in the week. So when you're sitting at your trading platform, just remember, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So go out there and drain the banks. And just one other thing, that was a donational indicator from 2021. So you can find out how to get it. Either look at the comments or look on Crestlick. This is TheRumpledOne, over and out.